Lucy, I need to make a date with you. I'd like a real good chat.
Yeah, of course.
Later. Hiya.
I pushed it back.
Good evening. Thank you. Nice to see our packed house for this meeting. So this is an extraordinary general meeting just focusing on the Mundesley Road development. Before we start, apologies for absence, please, Jasmine.
We've got Councillor Cavell, Councillor Brand, Councillor Bunton, Councillor Gimby, and Councillor Spall.
Thank you. And
It's not on my list.
full of illness at the moment.
Where's the builders?
From the councillors, do they have any declarations of interest? Nothing else? No?
It's why is there nobody on the committee about people building it?
This was a meeting of the council.
Is that all then? It's not, well, it's not, so are we not going to see any other meeting about the people that are actually going on the field and building all these houses?
This is a meeting of the council. We're going to be deciding what our response is to the district council in response to the planning application. Everyone will have an opportunity to speak. So we normally have 15 minutes for public speaking, obviously with more people here this evening, so I propose that we suspend item 3F to allow that. Someone will second that. All in favour? Good. First of all, we have some colleagues from North Norfolk District Council who are going to give us a bit of background, I think. Is that correct?
Yes.
As guys, would you like to do your bit first and then we'll open up to general comments?
Yeah, I'll just stand up so you can see me. So I'm Russell Stock. I'm the planning officer for this application. So we've been invited here today just to give a bit of an overview of the sort of factual matters of the application and the procedural elements as to how we consider it and how, if we can help the town council sort of clarify any confusions at this meeting. So we're not here to promote the scheme. It's not our application. We've been tasked to determine it. That's our job. And we're not going to provide opinions on the merits of the application at this stage. So our role is to consider the submission having regard to local and national planning policy, relevant guidance and material considerations. In this context, I'm going to provide a few facts about the application, whereas my colleague Jeff we'll talk a bit about the local plan and how that interacts with that. So the application is an outline, as you'll know, with all matters reserved except for consideration of the access onto the B1145 and onto Mundesley Road. So all the other matters, the design, all of the other accesses, appearance, layout, that's for consideration at a later stage. So at North Norfolk District Council, we've consulted a number of stakeholders, including the Town Council, to give us their opinions on the plan application. They include sort of the governmental bodies of Natural England, Historic England, Environment Agency, as well as County Council and their Highway Authority, being the Highway Authority, Lead Local Flood Authority, Minerals and Waste, and our own internal officers who will give us guidance on matters like landscape and ecology and those kind of things. So the application will be determined by, so the planning application for NNDC will be determined by the planning committee. So that would be where the councillors make the decision based on the recommendation from officers. And again, the recommendation will be based on how the proposals fit in with planning policy, like local and national, and taking into account all the comments that may be received. So the current determination of the planning application is the 14th of April. But it may be extended beyond that if it needs to be, if there's further information on those kind of things. So yeah, that's all I'm going to say at this stage. But yeah, I'm happy to answer any sort of factual questions that may arise.
Could I just ask one question? You mentioned in there that the outline planning application didn't include the access points, but I understood that actually they did ask that the main access off the bypass and the secondary access into the Mundesley Road
Yeah, that's correct.
was included in the outline.
That's correct. Those two are the only accesses to be considered in detail at this stage.
At this stage, that's
Yeah.
right, but they are accesses that are due for consideration
That's
now.
right, yes. Yeah, it will be the other connections that would come at a later stage.
How about the planning permission that went through on Christmas Eve? Just so we're all on the same page.
Yes,
Yeah.
So the application was submitted on Christmas Eve. Yeah.
on Christmas Day, wasn't it?
I think that was,
25th.
yeah, it sort of kicked over on the system.
It's rather strange.
Well, it is strange because I thought this was Norfolk Trust. Because I got here on this magazine, this book I found, and it said the local walks and everything like round here. And it says you can go and walk around the field, the Walk Trust. And I don't know if that bit, that entrance you say is near the motorway on the road is going there. I don't know if that belongs to it because it says here lots of trees and big lots of trees and that. And I don't know how these people got away with it, to be honest, build on it.
Can we let the other NDC person do their introductory bit first and like into the detail?
So I'm Jeff Lyon, I'm the development manager at North Norfolk. So I sort of manage the development management team for the function of Norfolk. As Russell said, it's outlined sort of the basics of the application. I think the difficulty with this application is that we're, at the same time as considering this application, we're also assessing a new local plan for North Norfolk. So I'm sure many of you would have been familiar with responses when the original local plan came before the inspector, and there were concerns about the site that we're now considering being allocated, and it wasn't in the original allocation for the local plan. But the inspector, having done the examination at the beginning of last year, he did come back in the middle of the year and said, look, we need more housing included in the local plan. So actually the figure that we were working to previously has now gone up. He said he wants an extra 1,000 to maybe 1,300 extra houses in that plan for that next sort of 20 years or so. So we're having to, as a policy team, having to look at where can we get these extra houses from, which
We are getting, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you are getting houses. You're getting houses in Ross's.
Can you
They're building houses around there and behind the North Walsham Garden Centre.
Can we let it finish first, please?
I'm happy to take questions after. Let me just say
That's
this.
just,
So we're being asked by an inspector to find more houses for the district, not just for North Walsham, but for the whole of North Norfolk. So the housing numbers have gone up. we've had a new government since the local plan started, and they've introduced a higher housing target. So we've gone from sort of the high 500s now to looking at sort of low to mid 900 dwellings per year. So when you think about that difference of high 500s to 900, that's a lot of extra houses that as a district we're having to find to meet the housing needs that have been set by government. So, and that presents a difficulty for determining applications, because we have, as a council, we have to demonstrate we have 5 years supply of housing across North Norfolk, and we haven't had that luxury for a couple of years now. We haven't been able to demonstrate 5 years of supply, and that then sort of changes how we assess planning applications. If we haven't got 5 years supply, we then have to apply presumption in favour of sustainable development. Now, whether something's sustainable development, there's lots of arguments about what attributes to sustainable development. But as a district council, when making planning decisions, if we don't have that 5 year supply, we have to take into account other factors. So we should really be approving housing if it's in a sustainable location, unless there are reasons why we should refuse it. So it's about thinking about what are the things that weigh against the grant of a planning permission. So yeah, Russell's got the unenviable task of obviously going through all the comments that come through on this application. He'll put the recommendation together, and I will sign off that report or go to development committee. So yeah, it's not an easy application to determine. We recognise there's lots of strong feeling why this scheme shouldn't go forward. So we're having to we'll have to weigh lots of issues against each other and come into our recommendation. But I just want to set the scene, because local plan policies aren't always easy to follow in terms of how they relate to decisions that we make. But even if this wasn't being taken forward as part of the site application, we still have to think about those 5 year land supply issues, so they don't sort of vanish just because something's being taken out of a site application. So happy to take any questions.
Can I ask a question? So the in North Walsham, is there adequate land put aside for building for this area? Yes.
Well,
Yes or no?
Well, it's not a yes. Unfortunately, planning unfortunately isn't black and white. It's so many shades of grey, and actually there's not a 5 year land supply for North Walsham or a 5 year land supply for Fakenham. It's a 5 year land supply across the whole of North Norfolk. So inspectors don't say, oh yes, you've got enough supply in North Walsham, so therefore you don't need it. It's assessing it as a whole.
You work on a local basis.
We do, yes.
And you're responsible to Norfolk.
So
your responsibility must be our area. Is there areas in Norfolk where it hasn't got adequate land put aside for the building?
Well, no, we think we've got enough. Well, we thought we had enough when we put the plan to the inspector. The inspectors come back and said we need more to meet needs of the future. So that's why we're looking at changing our growth policy in small villages. We're looking at adding some settlements to that list, and to look at sites that, and that's the difficulty, we're having to go back to sites that we've previously ruled out because the inspector says they want more housing in the district. So
who came up with the bright idea that this was the best place to be?
It's not, is it?
well, those decisions are still being made, aren't they? So the inspector's still looking at the evidence in favour of sites that have come forward in addition. There's no guarantee the inspector will say, yes, I do like this, because the town council raised concerns about its distance from the town centre in terms of walkability, concerns about sort of access and things like that, landscape impacts. So an inspector is still going to have to grapple with that and decide, well, have those issues gone away, or are there other issues that we need to take into account?
So it's declined in 17 and 18, I understand. Why is it now magically allowed to build on now?
So sorry to interrupt. It just because we're conflating two issues there. The people who put the planning application in could have put the planning application in anyway. So the planning application could have gone in at any point. It's just convenient because at the same point, the district council have had to find more land to build homes on because the government have said you need more homes. So at either point, whoever wanted to build on the land could have submitted a planning application. It's just convenient for them at this point to do it.
Because of various factors previously, what's changed now?
Nothing really changed. But even if a planning application is declined on a piece of land, you can still submit as many planning applications as you want.
I mean, we've got the
That's
issue.
the issue.
Let's say we did, as a district council, decide to refuse this application. they would have a right of appeal. So they would go to the planning inspectorate in Bristol, and an inspector would come along and probably do a public inquiry because it's quite a big sized site. And then the inspector could still grant it if he or she found there was reasons why it should be approved. If we don't have a 5-year land supply and there's no harms that would justify refusing it, then an inspector may still go around and say, okay, we note the concerns from years ago, but I'm going to grant it subject to X, Y, and Z. So it's not the end of it necessarily, but there are complicated planning issues, and sort of weighing those together is the hard bit that the development committee will have to make when it goes to them in
So you're, sorry to interrupt you, but you're saying that you need more houses. But I said a few minutes ago, there is going to be building on the back of North Walsham Garden Centre. There's going to be houses there. There's the field in Ross's. They're going to have houses. I don't know how many houses. They're going to have a load of houses there. So why are you building on that field that it's supposed to belong to the trust, Norfolk Trust, and that is for that, and I don't know if that bit that's advertising going to the motorway is that, because that is really actually, yeah, you can have one if you want.
Just so I can understand which bit you're referring to.
It's the Bacton Woods, but it's not, that's not getting developed, but the back, if you know where I go dog walking, so I know where I'm talking because I live at Boyd's Close, and it's just there, a big Neiman friend just saw it, actually there. I mean, there's bats there, I think there's bats in that's bats on that bridge. They're supposed to modernising that. They're going to get rid of the oak trees that have been there donkey's years. And I don't know if they're going to replace that take ages to grow, like all these developments do. And why is it particularly they've got to have that? I know you want houses, but if they're building it in Ross's and they're building it behind North Walsham, I don't know how many houses they've got there, but they're going to do that. Why is it going to be there? Because that is away from the shops. You're going to cut through the bottom of Acorn Road, and that's where I live. It's going to be eyesore getting out of there. I mean, getting outside, get to work, and people are going to get work, and then it's near a house that they've got a couple of things on the plan to go out of it. And I don't know if that trust does go there. I don't know.
Okay, but you've had your bit, so we've got a lot of people here, so everyone needs to have their words. Yeah, thank you. Is there anyone else for
Can I just say something? It's getting a bit confused, I think, here. Under the local plan that governs current planning applications, which was signed off in 2008, this site at the end of Mundesley Road was categorised as agricultural countryside and not for housing. The reason the developers have put in this application, and I don't know if you were here back in November when they were here, is that they're now arguing that because the district council has not got an adequate land supply for housing, i.e. 5 years, therefore they can put in a planning application on a piece of land that is not classified for housing. So that's what this application is about. What has also happened, because of the new local plan, which has been extensively consulted upon, and which in North Walsham is providing for something like 1,850 extra houses on the western side of the town, and we've already had planning applications which have recently been approved in Norwich Road and on Station Road, which is getting up towards 300, over 300 houses. That's what's being proposed and was accepted by the council on the way forward. As Jeff Lyons has said, our problem is that the planning inspector that has to sign off these plans, local plans, has said you've got to provide another 1,000 plus houses. So the developers on this side are now saying, well, leave it. Not only have you not got enough land to supply housing for 5 years, so we can put in an application, they're also now saying, but under the new local plan, the land should be allocated for housing because you haven't got, in order to meet the government's targets. So we've got two things going at the moment, which I understand is confusing, but the current application that the town council is considering tonight is based on the previous local plan, and they're arguing they can have houses here because there's not enough supply of housing for 5 years. So I hope that makes it a bit more straightforward for you.
So why is it that you say there's not much houses that have been doing, but they're still doing it in Ross's? He's selling that land for developer houses, and you're saying that they're developing houses, and the back of North Walsham Garden Centre, they're actually doing it as well.
Look, I thought I'd answered that.
Well, no, because I'm sorry, I couldn't understand
Right,
it.
fine. Well, I think the best thing to do is that perhaps once the meeting is finished, I'll have a chat with you and try and explain.
Right.
Okay?
If I may just add something, what's just been said this morning. There's also the issue for the council of what is called nutrient neutrality. Natural England decreed, must be over 3 years ago now, suddenly out of the blue, that certain areas you could not build because of discharges of sewage, particularly related to the Upper Bure Valley, the Upper Wensum Valley, and certain parts of the Ant. That immediately put a block on several large-scale developments which were sitting in abeyance, awaiting reapproval when they can resolve how that nutrient neutrality issue is dealt with. The result of that is areas around Fakenham that are now very difficult to build. Areas around Stamford are very difficult to build. You already must be aware that you cannot move inland from the coast in Cromer and Sheringham because you're into the area, what was it, near outstanding natural beauty, I think I call it National Landscape Valley or something. The government speaks downgrade things in my view. So there are limited parts of the district where future development can take place. And we are required, as a district, I'm chair of the development committee, so I'm the one who sits at the front when making the decisions, not on this one actually. And my position on this is well known, so I'm barred that one. We've got to provide a certain number of houses. That's always been the case. That's why there's a local plan. It sets out the policies by which we will ensure we meet the requirements set on us by government. Now, because there is a limited area of land, every developer looking to make a quick buck is looking at North Walsham because there are no nutrient neutrality restrictions in and around North Walsham, where there is land which they think could be developed. Hence this application. On top of the sites that were already agreed, we know the inspector is happy with, that includes North Walsham West, which is a 20-year scheme. It's not something that happened overnight. It will include a lot of highways works and other important aspects. There's the Law Commission site, Hopkins, starting on. I think they're on site now. The full commission signed off before Christmas. So we are under attack because we are an area where development can take place.
The one thing that I think is actually beginning to incense me more than anything about all this is that we're not hearing about what the people of the town, the residents of the town, actually want. The residents of the town do not want this development. It's almost irrespective of what the planning officer says and what the inspector says, etc., etc., etc. People in general do not want this development at that particular spot. And we're not, it doesn't appear in any shape or form that people are actually being listened to in that regard. What is happening is we're hearing all the arguments as to why it shouldn't be done for this practical reason and that practical reason. I mean, for example, today I was talking to Natural England, and the cut-off point for nutrient neutrality is 20 hectares. It so happens that this particular development is only 16 hectares. So nutrient neutrality can't be an issue because it falls below Natural England's set line or set limit for declaring nutrient neutrality. And I have traced, as everybody would know themselves, you can trace that the overflow water that goes into the canal, that then goes into the River Ant, that then goes down to the Barton Broad, that then goes down on and meets the River Bure just below London Bridge. So you could say that actually it is within the catchment area of the River Bure. So, you know, it's these sort of issues that actually I find them really, very annoying actually. And probably not got a lot of arguments to it, but it is more this issue of people who are not really being listened to here, I'm afraid.
All right. I'm gonna have my son. You're gonna get fed up the back to me, but I like wildlife. There was a lot of wildlife in that woods, and there's a harrier comes in there. There's two pairs of little owls. Let me have my speak, please. Let me
just wait till the end.
Let me have a speak.
Can you wait please for this other lady? You've had...
I just want to say, I agree with this gentleman. That's what I'm going to say. I agree because they don't care a damn about any wildlife. They want to actually build on every little bit of land. I know there's a lot of houses because of but we're struggling now with the water pressure now and everything.
Yeah, okay, I'll just move on to this lady here then, please.
Can I just ask, with regards to the access onto the 1145, how do you consider, or how does the council consider the safety of that actually coming out at that point of the road?
Well, in the planning application, Norfolk Highways will comment on that. I don't know if they have yet, but they have a right to comment on that, and they could put restrictions on it or object to it.
Obviously, as locals, we know that piece of road, that probably isn't an ideal
No, it's not the ideal place.
No.
I presume Highways haven't commented yet.
No, not at this stage, but yeah, the County Highway Authority will be looking at those details and
Do you bring the police into that at all? From a safety point of view?
The police do comment on the application and they look for good design to encourage safe places. I don't know whether they look as sort of at the technical highway requirement elements. That's more for the Highway Authority to look at.
Yeah, so you seek what they say rather than them having to comment on it.
We seek their views, and take them into consideration.
And do that with the fire service as well?
Pardon, sorry?
Do you do that with the fire service as well?
Yes, we do.
There goes someone in the middle there. Thank you.
Hello. So I'm a resident of Lokeside House, which is the Grade 2 listed building, which is literally less than 2 metres of where you propose to put that new road in. But under the Planning, Listed Buildings and Conservation Areas Act 1990, the local authorities have a statutory duty to preserve listed buildings and their settings. Section 66 of this Act is clear, saying, considering whether to grant planning permission for development which affects a listed building or its setting, the local planning authority shall have special regard to the desirability of preserving the building or its setting. Given this legal obligation, I would like to question the senior planning councillor, who should have full knowledge of these planning laws and how this was ever deemed viable. Does this reflect the lack of professionalism or a failure to understand the law? Or if the law has been ignored, this is the serious failing. Has it just been willfully overlooked? Furthermore, what about the developers behind the scale? Do they possess the relevant qualifications to undertake a development of this scale, aware of the legal protections in place for the listed buildings? If not, they are not fit to carry out this project. It does not appear to be a plan that serves the interest of our town, its residents, or its heritage. Instead, it seems to serve the financial interests of developers at the expense of our history, our community. Accountable to the people it represents, not to the private companies looking to profit from our irreversible damage to our historic environment. I urge the council to uphold its legal duty, protect our heritage and reject this reckless proposal.
Well said.
Thank you for those points. So in terms of us raising objections to the proposal, we need solid grounds to do that. So what you raised is a very useful point, and perhaps you could pass on those details as well.
Absolutely.
I'll have a copy if you can.
Thank you.
So I live on Lingate Road, and every single meeting I stood up to my Tennisworth. I remember when we sat here in November, and I raised the issue of what about Lingate Road and how overwhelmed it is already. And two guys from the development company sat here, and they hadn't a clue about Lingate Road. They hadn't even factored it in. They were clueless. Yeah, and they refer to the life of the class as Lingate Road. I know it is technically as well. My concern is that they will not build the bridge, they will not build the roundabout, everything will come down Mundesley Road, everything will come out of Lingate Road. You know, it's a racetrack at the moment, it's dangerous. As we said, there was probably 5 times the number of people, 6 times the number of people on Saturday at the meeting, and it's a bit sad there's not so many people here tonight, which doesn't give a true reflection of the feeling. As the MP said, get something done if someone gets killed. Now, we don't want that to happen, but it's a dangerous road. And you take your life in your hands. Now, I'm not someone who gets involved in process very much, but as things go on, my mind is thinking, I'm going to sit at the junction of Lingate Road, or put my car across it and block it, and then that will get some headlines on the national news. Once planning permission or someone tries to build there. And there's other people who said they do that with me, so, you know.
If the farmers can do it, so do we.
Exactly, that's why I can put everybody on notice now. I will stop North Walsham operating if I need to.
Well, that sounds a good idea.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm well aware of the park traffic along that road. It's a bottleneck already, isn't it?
It's a racetrack.
Highways aspects is one of the things that we can raise as an objection.
One of the things at the moment, because of the ground school road closed, it's got a lot busier. We're getting HGVs coming down at 3 o'clock in the morning, and that I'm sure that is illegal to do that. And people racing down there, it either needs speed bumps, cameras, or it's not an access road. It's a 1,000-year-old track that's been upgraded to.
Just to pick up on the bridge point, I think that the applicant's proposal is to not build the bridge until half the site is done, which is far too late. It needs to be an early project.
As we said on Saturday, the track record is these things don't get built once it's started because they're justified.
That's something that we would raise, I'm sure.
You're going to have construction traffic coming down and Lingate Road as well.
We have the
survey. How many cars?
I did an ad hoc survey. I spent 20 minutes every 2 hours over Tuesday or something in the start of the year, and in December, and I counted, I prorated it up, and it was equivalent to 8,000 cars, but I only prorated it up over 18 hours. I ignored driven 8,000 vehicles.
I was going to say, following on the construction vehicle side of it, have we had any update from the developers on what their timescale is for the actual construction of the site? And if so, have they done any analysis on the mix of construction vehicles, i.e. tippers, cement mixers, Arctics, etc., needing access to that site? Because at the moment, I agree with the gentleman behind me, that the road system in North Walsham is really under strain. Yes, we've got the roadworks on Mundesley Road, on the junction of Norwich Road. If you look at Cromer Road as well as Lingate Road, both of them are suffering from the fact it's parked cars down both of those roads, for the right reasons, but it is causing absolute chaos. You try to come out of North Walsham, from like Simpson Close, that area, up to the Cromer Road traffic lights, and you can't get out there. Lingate Road, all the construction vehicles, we're going to be looking at 24 tonners, anything up from 7.5 ton, up to 32-ton tippers, Arctics up to 44 ton, trying to come around Lingate Road, around that corner onto Mundesley Road. not suitable.
And the potholes in that road that have appeared in the last 6 weeks are dangerous.
I think their transport plan in application only covers the, once it's finished, it doesn't cover the construction.
No, that is an important part of it.
It is.
You know, especially for
It's the heaviest
residents.
traffic.
And I think part of the proviso that as a council perhaps we should recommend, and I know there's other objections because of the situation, they should build the link from the B1145 in into the main, when you look at the plan, the main road coming in from that bridge, in theory, is into the site. If they don't do that first, they will never do it, and everybody will suffer ongoing.
On average, a house has 2 cars per drive. How are you going to deal with that extra volume of traffic coming in and out of town? You can't deal with it now. And you've got a dump down there that's overflowing. Where are you going to deal with all the waste from that side? Where's that all going to go? Or are you going to build more big tips everywhere just to make sure these people that want to earn an extra bob, as you put it, how are you going to deal with that?
No,
You can't-
yeah, but what about the schools and the
Yeah,
doctors?
you can't deal with it now. You haven't got enough doctors now, and you want to put more houses out there. Why all of a sudden do you need so many more houses? Hunger for somebody.
Because there's ignorance coming, that's why. Ignorance are coming. I'm not a racist person, but that's why, because they've got to actually.
Can we not sorry answer that, please? Can we stick to the planning, things we can object to under planning law, which I think Paul explained quite well on the Saturday meeting, and maybe it'd be appropriate to do that now.
How do you deal with all those cars coming into the centre of town? It's a nightmare now. Nobody knows when they can come up through there, or what size vehicle can come up through there. I've nearly been knocked over at least once. I fell over once on the edge of the path. I know this is old stories, but I went down to Somerset and I saw this village down there. It's done in little blocks and it's lovely because it's all even. It hasn't got stupid footpaths that you can't see. This council really needs to get a kick up the backside, and I don't care if you're out there. It really does. The town is a nightmare and you're going to make it into a hell of a, oh, it's going to be awful. Trust me.
Well, the doctors is now, but that's the doctors now is a nightmare.
Yeah.
Oh,
sorry. Gentleman down there.
Sorry?
Yes, or is there someone else there with you?
This gentleman
Yeah,
here.
I mean, the main point here, which also covers the roads in and out of town, the traffic in town. The main point overall is the infrastructure here cannot cope in any way, shape or form. Doctors, schools, whatever you look at, the infrastructure's not there. And I'd like to ask this planning guy here, what importance, when you're talking about extra houses, and just remember, we're looking at 13,000 people in North Walsham currently. What importance do you put on infrastructure when you're looking at the plans to go forward?
We'll probably cover that in a minute. Oh, sorry.
You've been waiting longer than I have. To do with the community infrastructure levy, is this going to be taken into account?
We don't
If
have
not, why not? Because Station Road, I'm finding that 14,000 from the sale of Station Road has actually gone towards the Norfolk Trust to do with the walks, which I think
we do section 106 currently in North Norfolk. We don't do the SIL. And as part of the 106 agreement, I believe there was some money for the libraries from the Station Road site. I think there was also money for allotments there. So the section 106...
45,000 towards the AfroTurf at the North Walsham Football Club, and 15,000 went over to the Norfolk walking trail, the Mundesley walk. That's all down there, isn't it? And it's like, how did that come into
So through the 106 agreement, or through what the Paston Trust is choosing to do with the profit they've made from the land. So the 106, that's what I wanted to just touch on, if you don't mind. So I'm the county councillor for that side of town, so roads is everything that I'm really concerned about in the current consultation. Aside from being consulted as a district councillor, I've made my feelings very, very clear about the concerns that everybody's got about the road infrastructure, because aside from whatever happens, we need to make sure it's safe for people to move around in the town, whether or not they're on foot, on bike, mobility vehicles, whether or not they're pushing prams, whether or not they're in cars. Everybody needs to be safe moving around. And as part of that, the county council consulted on, they've asked me about schools, libraries, the fire service, and things that they deal with in that regard. So when it comes to the fire service, what we're really consulted on is, do we need extra fire hydrants? We're not really consulted on much beyond that as a local member. The libraries, as much as we don't want development, we've got the third busiest library in the whole of the county, North Walsham. Our libraries are big enough for our community, and our library staff are doing a fantastic job. We need a bigger library. So when I'm consulted on what we need in terms of service as a county councillor, those are things that I've spoken about. I've spoken about we need more special educational needs placements. We need an SEN school in town, because a lot of our children are going out of area and out of district to go, so these are the things that we need to think about. No matter what expansion's coming, what is it we actually need from it? The NHS England came to the Health Overview and Scrutiny Committee last year, and North Walsham is on their radar as needing better health facilities. So they will build the building. At the moment, our GP surgeries do not have enough rooms in their buildings to bring even more medical staff in to see everybody in a timely manner. That's their issue, and they are very aware of that issue. And the staff that we've got in our GP surgeries, both of them, are doing a fantastic job to try and accommodate without having extra space. NHS England are fully aware that we need larger medical practice facilities in the town. They know that completely.
Sorry, Lucy, but isn't that what the community levy is for? Is to help support the infrastructure?
So the Section 106 agreement.
No, the SIL.
We don't have SIL in North Norfolk.
But is it about time we do? Because that will protect, to make sure the money is there for the infrastructure, because that's what we're crying out for. But yet you're not putting the levy in.
But that's what the 106. You can either have SIL or you can have Section 106.
But SIL seems to be the better of the two options, and we haven't got it. Why? Because you can set what is needed for the roads, the schools, the dentists, the doctors.
But you can do that through the 106 agreement.
So then why is there two?
Jeff, you will know the difference between SIL and 106. I think SIL's more localised.
Yeah.
Well, hello, the small bullshit.
I mean, the thing with SIL, SIL is basically tariff per dwelling. You pay, it goes into a pot, then that pot goes towards projects identified by each of the districts. There's no guarantee that that pot will pay for the thing that you might want in your local area. It could go to fund something out of your area in another part of Norfolk. So that's the downside to SIL, is that you collect all the money, but it doesn't actually mitigate the things that you want it to mitigate, as soon as you want to mitigate it.
So it doesn't get ring fenced to North Walsham, because that's where the sale is coming from.
The reason the District Council did not go for SIL when it was first introduced was because we were worried that money that, on a 106 agreement, if they say there's £100,000 for a new library, you specify North Walsham. Under SIL you can't.
So we have the 106 agreement. So after when you see a big planning application, towards the end of the report, it can tell you what's outlined to go into which pots. So the Norwich Road one, for example, did have NHS provision in that. So it will tell you how much money is going towards the service area. So each service, each public authority, in whatever form they sit, can say, actually, we need money for this, and that will all form part of the report. So
was Station Road 106 as well then?
Yeah, there is 106 in Station Road, and my recollection, and I'm probably forgetting, some of it Paul may remember better. I definitely remember there was allotments in there, and I definitely remember there was library services in there.
Yeah,
There was.
a lot of the funding that appears to be sort of counted in that was because Sport England, because it was out on the playing fields.
Well,
I remember
they didn't
well
object
back
then,
in the
did they?
60s.
Because they got some money towards the football pitch, so they're not going to object.
That's the reason. Because we're taking out what had been sports pitches for decades, since the 1920s. Certainly they were always passing in the 60s. Sport England have a right to ask for provision of facilities that are to the equivalent elsewhere. So funding
2.5 miles away.
the all-weather pitch, which is other funding available for it. With luck, we'll get it at some point. It's been a long time coming. That will be set aside for that. Various organisations can ask for money, and then there's a lot of negotiation between the developers and the lawyers as to what is an acceptable figure.
And this is where, when there's social housing elements, which is part of that agreement, this is where you will see if a development isn't financially sustainable, then they will start to cut part of their agreements, and you will find that social housing will be the one that's cut that hits the news. Because social housing is generally the reason why local communities say, we don't want to do development, but we know that our community needs this proportion of the housing which is affordable to us.
Thank you, Lucy. We're probably a bit off
Sorry,
topic
can I
there.
just
So
say
one more person, I think, by the door, and then we'll move on to discussion and vote.
I just want to follow on from the gentleman that I did the other day, for those that weren't there on Saturday, about Lingate Road, Mundesley Road, Crow Road. With this, going back to the proposed development, and I have spoken to Highways this week myself about current issues, because it is a nightmare, because that is a rat run, that is a pinch point, that is horrendous. I saw even today, 2 near misses. Yesterday, I was trying to get out my drive, because I live on the side between the Premier Shop and Crow Road with no pavement, and no protection to our property, because my property is being eroded. There's been another foot taken off one of my neighbour's gardens this week. I actually watched MKM truck go by as I'm waiting with my dog today, go over my bank where my hedge is planted. I'm expecting a truck in my garden or in the houses opposite at some point. And also a community nurse went over the other part of my exit from my property. My dog actually lay down on the floor yesterday because we were waiting so long to try and get out of his property. That was without this proposed development possibly getting approval. This is with current traffic. And something needs to be done in that stretch of the road. I agree with the gentleman in Lingate. Our road was not built for HGVs. I spoke to Sanders, so they weren't very sympathetic, but he promised me they won't go any more than 20 miles an hour. Well, I said, well, they do. He goes, no, they don't. I said, yes, they do. Traffic gun.
We need to move on to those points.
Yeah, but that is something, even with current situation, it's a nightmare. That is a rat run, and they go to the petrol station, and you're not going to stop that, even if you have an exit onto that.
Thank you. We must move on now. But
can I just make one question? Just one question.
Yeah.
How much actual social housing is going to be on this site? I actually back onto the site. I want to know, is there going to be social housing on there? Are they going to be built, or is it just going to be money housing?
I don't know that we actually know. Typically, there's a 15% allowance.
Didn't we say 60? That's the basic in the
The proposal at the moment is 15%, which is 50 houses.
That's affordable, not social.
It's not social.
Yeah, that's affordable.
Yeah.
What is it you deem as affordable? Just out of curiosity. what is the bracket that is deemed as affordable?
There isn't one.
There is. There's a definition of the National Planning Policy Framework. It's a long definition. I mean, there's different sort of types of housing, but it's yeah. I mean, I don't want to bore you with a long definition.
Oh no, please bore me. Please.
So in part, it's either shared ownership, There's some socially rentable and sometimes there's private rentable that comes from part of it. Affordable to the government doesn't mean that it's affordable to local residents.
No,
and that's
I
where the
understand
disparity
that.
comes
I'm
from.
just asking for the actual numbers.
So it's 15%, so it's 50.
No, of the price that is deemed.
80% of market value is a broad definition.
Of the shared ownership.
Yeah.
Right, so could you give me that number, please?
The house hasn't been built.
No, I appreciate that, but there's proposals of the houses. I'm no market professional, but I understand that when you propose to write houses, that you're going to understand slightly a bit more about the market value of the plot of land and the proposals that you're initiating. So you will roughly, very roughly, I'm not talking exact ballpoint, I'm talking a rough estimation of what those affordable houses would be.
The developers couldn't say.
The developers couldn't.
Don't you think you should sort the bit you've got out first before you start adding on extras? If you go up Blackton Road, where I fell over a manhole up there, just behind a car, I see that somebody has put two little lines around one tiny little hole up there. Why don't you sort the whole town out instead of putting bits on the edge, which is just going to make it worse and worse and worse, because you're not going to be able to handle the traffic.
Okay, well, we must move on now to the actual council to make a decision on this. I would say, we previously voted again or raised objections to this at the previous thing, and I'm sure we'll probably do the same again. But the important thing is we've got to determine what the grounds are that we can validly object to, that the planning colleagues can take heed of. Schools and doctors and everything else is definitely an issue, and the road network of the town. But those aren't things that they can take into consideration. I believe, Paul, you've got some.
Yes, I think my member's been circulated with various papers from myself. I think we need to look at a broad summary of objections. I can work with Jasmine for something in much more detail and refined later on as a draft. I would say the following are the objections that we ought to be making at the bare minimum. Firstly, the application is premature. The new local plan has not yet been signed off by the inspector, so it's not therefore currently designated for development. And that's an important point. It is worth reminding people that the site was proposed originally, as we know, back in 2017, when the discussions on site allocations were still going on. It was not included for the following reasons. It's reasonably remote from the town centre and services. Fine, reasonably, it's remote. It would be an extension to open countryside and could have an adverse effect on the landscape. I would take that as read for those of us who know it. Highways access from the local road network is considered unsuitable. I don't think much has changed since Regulation 18 consultation rejection. Preferred sites can deliver sufficient housing for North Walsham. Again, we are taking the vast bulk of development under the local plan as it is currently being reviewed by the inspector, and that is enough. On more minor things, it's recognised that parts of the site are susceptible to groundwater flooding. Small areas potentially susceptible to surface water flooding. I've been advised by those who live around it, and that is definitely the case.
Yes.
There's a potential negative biodiversity impact. It's adjacent to the Paston Way Napton cutting. It's arable land. There are significant mature trees, hedgerows, and today, thanks to John passing it on to me, I've seen the Local Wildlife Trust response. That is very robust. It's a loss of good agricultural land. So I see this side of my family back 500 years farming. Land is for farming, it's growing food, it's not covering in housing or covering in solar farms, the other big areas.
That land develops two harvests a year.
It's good land. Then there's the potential to affect the setting of a certain grade 2 listed building, as has been mentioned. And those were reasons for refusing to take that site forward. And I don't think anything's really changed. I can't see a proven need for additional housing in North Walsham. What we're having is more than sufficient to meet local needs. All that will happen is these houses, and we've got the data at District Cllr, are tend to be bought up by people in the 50 to 65 age range, are downsizing, retiring. And we know what that will do to health services. You know, I'm over 70. I need the health services and I can't get a doctor's appointment very easily.
I would just like to say that I bought my listed building last year, and I'm unfortunately not over 65. My daughter is 7. She's not over 65.
No, I'm just saying this is general data on the way in which the population of North Norfolk as a whole is growing. But it needs to be borne in mind, these are not houses to meet the needs of local people, of which we've got several hundred on the waiting list who would very much like to live in North Walsham or around the area. So we've got that to go. Then there's the specific policies, and it's worth remembering that the substantive is still the existing local plan from 2008, as modified in 2012. It's not the one that is still under consideration, because that hasn't been signed off yet. So I'm going to look at the policies in the existing plan. There's one referred to as CT5, the transport impact of new development. Now, we've all had this wide discussion on this, both here, on Saturday meeting and elsewhere. You know, we need to object on the basis of traffic problems, and Richborough's traffic study is so flawed it's ridiculous. I'm not sure when it was done. It's on Sunday, I think. It's a work of fiction. It's the same with their study on walking distances, which clearly sets out what walking distance should be, and then lively then asserts that the schools are nearly twice that.
Yes, exactly.
And it's not a safe route to the school. I often want to walk a child up the top of Marshgate and the school.
Not.
And you certainly want to put more traffic up there at school times. Not good. You know, access via Mundesley Road is so detrimental. Highways will no doubt come back and say that road is wide enough, and you can't argue with that bit. The other bit is. It's Lingate Road, and it's heading to town. Crow Road, diabolical junction onto Bacton Road. Hamlet coming in, and that's been like that as long as I've known town. That's a very long time. So what we would have is a lot of traffic jamming up narrow roads. Not that Richborough are worried. They said in a meeting that the problems of medieval market towns are not their concern. They treat it with contempt.
Yeah.
So we've got all those issues. That's before we move traffic down to the Cromer Road junction. The lights there have been modified partly with reference to the mitigation proposed for North Walsham West. And a very detailed set of traffic models being done for that. Very detailed. But then levels are responsible for that. So they will still put more traffic there. You'll get traffic coming to them and trying to cut down Cromer Road into town. And that's been restricted for years now. Then you've got the Norwich Road lights. Now, I presume County will have had the sense to look at potential additional development, but I doubt it somehow, based on past experience. You know, but those lights will almost certainly need modifying. So we look at our transport assessment study. Assessment contains data from different years. There are errors. It even refers to the link from Cromer Road through to the industrial estate. That's not going to happen. The link road through the west goes just below the railway line, between what might be industrial areas along the railway. Nobody owns the land, or has rights over that, purchase rights over that land beyond the railway bridge and into the industrial estate, and the local landowners do not want it. So that is not going to happen in my lifetime, I'm pretty sure. So there is no way of taking heavy traffic immediately out onto via there. It's going to come and cut through the town. So there's all sorts of issues there. And they come up with no mitigations at all for that traffic. So we need to refer to that, Mr. Mayor. That's sustainable transport. It's not going to reduce car use. If you're stuck right out there, you're not going to walk into town. Not many people are going to bike into town.
It's not safe to. It's not.
So what about the old people in Sevens?
I'm coming on to that, yes.
We've got an 80-year-old and I want to walk in the town.
Yeah, I will come to that. We know there are no realistic safe walking routes to schools, to healthcare, to shopping facilities, and the distances are too great for most people to walk. Their models show such little car use, it's almost unbelievable. You've got 330 houses there, not counting whatever the care facility is. It could be extra care, in which case the residents there may well have cars because they're not in a care home as such. I would think that just going to work in the morning, looking at maybe an extra 500 to 600 cars at peak times. We need some proper model.
Those cars will be travelling out of town as well, because there's no real big jobs here, is there?
No, the idea that there's local employment. We all know what the employment situation is like on the industrial estate. We're not, and certainly we're not going to be employing many higher end professionals. They're all going to Norwich, Broadland Park, and elsewhere.
Unfortunately, the youngsters are moving that. My daughter's moved to Norwich for that very reason. There's no opportunities here for them. They can save on the travelling.
Yeah, a lot of members of my family, my sister, moved to Norwich for that reason. One is in Walsham, but there's easy access to Norwich. Without getting stuck in Colchester. So if I move on to, don't want to be here all night. The studies they've provided are completely inadequate and need to be redone before any decision can be made in my view. Then they refer to public transport. Apparently, if you walk far enough, you can find a bus stop. there might be 3 buses a day.
Isn't that bus stop down Linfield Road, though, where the danger is?
There's no bus stops at a sensible walking distance from there.
Oh, Mundesley Road. I don't think there's any bus stops down.
There's
Okay,
not.
is it?
No, there's not.
No, absolutely no bus stops.
There's a light.
Yeah.
Public transport is not sufficient. If they want us to use sustainable transport, we need to public transport within a sensible walking distance. My view is we already need a hover bus running around the town all day to connect the bottom end of it.
But they're going to use their cars to go shopping in town, anyhow. They're not going to go down and catch a bus into town and walk around town with bloody big bags that they've bought. They're going to go in their car. Where are you going to go?
Yeah, where are you going to park?
Exactly.
It's murder now.
Let's all go through the middle of town.
Okay, I'll move on. So then there's the fact that you're not going to use a bus to get to the doctors, wherever that happens to be, when we eventually get a proper medical centre, which is likely on the outskirts somewhere, because that's where the land is. You've got to have an adequate parking for those as well. So there are a raft of issues there I think we need to refer to, Mr. Mayor. Then there's other things. The development will not be permitted under RCSS 10 unless there's adequate capacity in sewage works, electricity provision, etc. Now, I've seen what Anglican Water have to say. Yes, Marsh Shaking Camp. But they say that all the time. We already know what happens if there's a backup at Gillingham, it ends up on Mundesley Beach. And there are at least 3 incidents of discharges into the canal.
Where's the sewage going?
So there's that issue. I never believe a word Anglican Water say, to be honest. Then there's the issue of water. And there's a lovely article on the archives for a while. There's a lovely article in just North Walsham Line. Just reminding us, like I said before, those towers were built just after the war to replace one existing previous tower. When I lived up Norwich Road in the 60s, early 70s, there was an old guy who used to go and fire up these huge old diesels. Once in the morning, fill the tanks up, go back in the evening, do it again. But the town then had a population of only about 5,600 in the late 60s. Well, the towns I know, it was about 3,004. We've now 13,006 and growing. There's pumps filling those towers out all the time. And without data, you don't know just how low they're having to go. They're deep walls anyway there. What will happen when the water table they're pumping from, and you've done some studying on this, John,
Yes, I have,
drops below where the pumps can manage?
Well, that one development alone, I estimate will consume somewhere in the region of an extra 42 million litres of water a year. With the other developments in the town, that comes to about 280 million litres extra per year. Add the two together, you're up to 300 and whatever it is, million litres per annum. And you're talking about aquifers that in the drought season drop very considerably. The whole town is going to run out of water, not just the new development.
The water pressure around town, in some parts of town, is now gone.
Yeah, yes, exactly. It's just wishful thinking, I'm afraid. It's not practical at all, it's just wishful thinking.
Yeah. And just picking up some of the other points, and there will be more and more work through what's the documentation on the application itself. There's the HO1 policy on provision for elderly accommodation. This should be in locations well served by public transport and local services. Wow. Then there's various environmental policies, on protection enhancement of landscape character, and I've got no concerns with the impact on the Ant Valley and Big Knees. I think the detailed responses from Northern Wildlife Trust, and they're the experts on that.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah. So
I love the bit where they say they're going to replace ancient hedging.
Yes.
I'm not the one who did.
And it'll be followed within 2 years.
Yes, so there's a whole raft of issues there, and there will be more as we sit down and go through that in more
What
detail.
about sinkholes? Sorry to interrupt you. What about sinkholes? I watched a really good programme the other night on sinkholes, where they're actually having to survey all the land they were building on, because there was a lot of sinkholes appearing mysteriously. Has it been surveyed for that?
I don't think the geology here is particularly, well, that's normally where you've got chalk near the surface, which we don't.
It doesn't have to be just chalk. I watched a good programme on it the other night.
It would largely be tertiary sand and clays under there, like digging out a geological map. If sinkholes were there, it would largely be due to there having been chalk boulders laid down among the glaciations, which are moving and sort of washing away around the. It's difficult to know without having seen geological survey inside.
It might be a good idea to have a word with the guys that are drilling for the cable lines at the moment, because I can tell you for sure they've already had problems with some of the drainage that's there. Farmers in the past have put in drainage what they think. Development of the crops and so on.
Now, we certainly need to object. I think we object. Mr. Mayor, if I may continue, we do have to have a position should the outcome be that there is a recommendation for approval. There's always that risk, we need to be prepared for it. Now, in which case we need to be very clear as to what mitigations would be required and what would be acceptable if we are forced into that position. First thing would be that access to the site should solely be from the B1145, and preferably via a roundabout to be safer than the single slip they're proposing.
Yeah.
That access should be constructed before any other development takes place, especially given their idea that they'll think about it when they're halfway through. Sold enough houses, they can borrow the money more easily. At which time they'll do another liability study, and they haven't done one yet, by the way. So they don't even know the site is of what they're proposing, but they won't be building it, they'll sell it on to a house builder. They're just land agents. So I would have grave concerns that if that's not in place, it won't happen, because I do a viability study which said, oh dear, the site is no longer viable with that in place. And I'm sure the mayor will tell you how much a bridge costs to build. Or they'll try and get rid of the affordable housing, there's a minimal amount anyway offered. So I want to see that reality, not only to ensure that it's there, but to prevent years, 50 or so houses a year, you're looking at 7-year development. 7 years of builders, lorries coming up and down Mundesley Road and Wingate.
The proximity of that road that has been proposed will destroy the foundations of the listed building.
I'm sure Russell will say the conservation team, and if they have to look at that, and we'll be making our own comments and recommendations. So it will be looked at. It will be looked at. Don't worry. Then, thirdly, Mundesley Road should only be used for access to the initial construction traffic related to the bridge and that new access road. It shouldn't be used for any access for the site beyond the completion of the access road. You've got to be fair to them, just give them a chance to build it. They're not going to do that from the bypass side, they're going to come in from the other side. There has to be no construction traffic to use Wingate Road and Mundesley Road. That just has to be, to use that overused American phrase, common sense.
They'd have to build a whole road prior to any building.
There should be no contractors' vehicles or private cars from builders parked anywhere on Mundesley Road. It's all going to be within sight. And I think that's a condition that is relatively easy to impose. It's an easy one. If it's deemed that there's a secondary access needed, then yes, allow access from Mundesley Road for emergency vehicles. That's reasonable. Or a very small cluster of houses in that corner with emergency access on the main site through that, but not for the whole site being able to get out on the Mundesley Road.
How would you stop that being accessed by everybody?
It's either gated or there are bollards controlled by the fire brigade and health services. You have special keys for that purpose. I think we need an improvement to proportion of affordable housing. Existing plan says 45%. The new local plan, which I quote in, says 15%. And that is based on sat in enough planning policy meetings over the years to know that is sensible. Because house values here are a lot lower than they are in Cromer, Sheringham, which apparently are now the two least affordable places in the country to live, in comparison with local wages. I'm not sure how much behind we are on that in Walsham. We need to see a full viability study. We've got no idea on what the details will come in as and what the actual house builder deems is they can afford to put on there. There's an outline application to say, yeah, it needs this access, which we aren't going to be building because we'll just sell the land. There has to be a whole raft of traffic mitigations agreed with highways, provided regarding 1145, the 1150, the 149 junction, and particularly Wingate Road, part of Mundesley Road, Crow Road, etc. I would want to see the Backen Road, Crow Road junction improved. The county hasn't got the money to do it, so I think the developers should be paying for it. There's the issue of drainage. They're proposing what's called a subsystem, sustainable urban drainage system, which would take surface water down to some settling ponds just above Little London Lane, which already floods.
And it's lower than the field.
So, there's concerns about the viability. We know they're out on site having panicked at that at the moment by digging holes and filling up with sand. Clearly, they're not convinced that the proposals will work. So we can almost guarantee that there'll be further surface water runoff. Under the London Lane will end up down in the canal and the conservation areas.
That land funnels down, doesn't it? So it actually funnels and goes into one point, which means it's going to, that's where the road is really low.
Yeah. Nothing you can do about that. That road's been there probably since Saxon times. So there are huge issues about our proposals there. And there's no suggestion they'll use rainwater harvesting, for example, which would cut down on water usage generally, because that's what you use for flushing the loo and everything else. but no doubt that costs, and profit is all. There needs to be barrier planting along the Swayfield Rise boundary, and certainly no buildings on the other side higher than the existing buildings.
Bungalows.
We need bungalows for people my age. Yes, true. So, there's issues there. And then, it's ensuring the S106 agreement would get appropriate contributions to health and education. He's the expert on those two in a county role. That would provide walking, cycling improvements to town centre. We need pavement and footpath improvements, and more. And all of that costs money, which everyone wants spent. We know that. My view would be that if none of that is addressed, then if the committee is asked to approve it, it should actually be deferred until all of those can be negotiated. We may be overtaken at that point by the local plan and the inspected sites. We've got to build there because it happens to suit whatever the government is demanding of us currently. A lot of this is down to the government. Lorena's department just wants houses. They don't care where, they don't look at constraints. We've got the coast crumbling away on one side, we've got the Broads on that side, a large area of outstanding natural beauty, and we've got all the areas with nutrient neutrality restrictions. We're very limited on how land we can actually build on. If we're not building for local people, should we be building at all? That's a policy decision I can't have any responsibility for, because we're dictated to by government. The inspector will do what he's told.
So effectively, at the end of the day, if the government inspector says build, it will be built.
Yes, and the downside potentially is that if it goes to an appeal, we'll get a worse outcome than if it's decided locally.
But surely there's legality in place for us. Surely.
No, in terms of yours, there's a...
No, I'm not talking about in terms of the listed building. I'm talking about in terms of the residents of North Walsham. Surely
we don't get a say other than being consulted and then putting objections. The decision is made according to the National Planning Policy Framework, which is set by government, and then reference after that to local planning policies. And we have to make it, it's a quasi-legal position sitting on our development committee. We call the development committee, no one else will call the planning committees. You're making a decision based on the recommendation from officers, highly qualified professionals, who have analysed every single aspect and responded in relation to each policy, whether it's NPPF policy or local policy, and reached a balanced judgment.
Which is difficult, right? Because you yourself just said that you don't really trust what Anglian Water say.
Don't,
and they're a massive part of the UK's.
If they say, I don't know who used to comment, things like Anglian Water consultations, so my understanding is that we have to take what they say.
Bring back Cromwell.
Paul,
yes. Is that the end of your...
I will stop there, yes.
I think you've done a fantastic job there, and I think that's the basis of developing our... I hope that's the basis of our objections, but any other councillors want to add anything to that?
No, I just think, Bob, it would be important that people understand where we are in the process. So the proposal from the town council tonight is to object for a range of grounds set out by Paul. But the determining body is the planning, or what they call the development committee at Cromer. At the moment, that could reach there by April. Might be later. It's a public meeting. John Ford, that's been organising the residents to oppose this, will have no doubt the opportunity to speak, and probably one or two more. The town council will have the opportunity to speak, And also will local ward councillors also have the opportunity to speak to the committee. And then the committee will determine the application, follow in a discussion, which again is in public. So that is the process. The key thing now is, I noticed tonight there's something like 26 or 27 objections on the council's website. You need to, if you haven't written in your objection, you need to get going.
Yeah, but reflecting the kind of thing that Paul's spoken about, because those are the issues that can be considered.
It is very important that you individually object. Petitions are no good. You've got to individually object. And the planning officers and the committee need to be very clear that there is a very hostile approach to this proposed development in the town. And the number of letters of objection that go in can be done by me is crucially important. So please do that. In terms of the planning committee, well, we'll have to see what the recommendation of the officers are once all the information has been collected. The committee, having been involved with it for years, has to play by the rules. There's a context, but they also have a discretion. And it's entirely up to them if they think there are genuine planning grounds why they should not approve this, regardless of what officers they are entitled to say that. But they've got to have sound grounds, because the applicants will go straight off to an appeal and try and get that decision overturned. So I'm just setting that out to you so you're very clear on the way forward. This has got a long way to run.
If I may just jump in, if anyone would like help with valid grounds for objection for your own personal responses, you can email me at the info box in the Walsham Town Council. I'm quite happy to give you a sort of rough list of things that you could then compile your own response to.
Yes, we also have another document that I can email out to anybody.
Absolutely,
And it's a very useful document which can help, which has been put together, so it's very useful.
So any other councillor comments? In that case,
There's a hand up there, Robert.
Well, we've finished the topic.
Yes.
I propose that we raise an objection based on Paul's comments, and Paul works with Jasmine and whoever to compile a formal response. And maybe share it amongst all of us so we can chip in. So I'll propose that. Stephen, second. All in favour of that? Good. I'm pleased that we've come to that list. I think it's a strong list of objections, so I'll rest assured the Town Council is doing what it can to object and stop this development, but as Eric pointed out, other people have a hand in it too. Yeah. So with that then, close the meeting.
Yeah, can we just take that question?
Okay, yeah.
So it wasn't a question. How shall I put it? I thank you very much for the town councillors that are here in paving the way forward for this crazy situation to be hopefully stopped. But however, I am disappointed in the councillors that have given their apologies on this particular meeting. I would have thought that would have been quite substantial to be here tonight.
Yeah. Well, there are several of them at least are unwell, which is a valid reason. We don't know the reasons for everybody.
I would just like to also endorse that and say many thanks to the Town Council for its support. It is obviously supportive the rejection of the proposal, and thanks for that support, we need it.
District Council, just remind you the next meeting is on the 25th of February. Thank you.
So,